friends of Brainpower TV. Welcome to another episode of Brainpower TV with Dr. Echo. I have a wonderful, wonderful guest to introduce to you today. Her name is Dr. Angela, and she's the founder of Leadership Concepts Institute. So welcome to the show, Dr. Angela.
Thank you, Dr. Echo, for having me. I am so excited for being here or being invited to be here. So
Yes, it's a pleasure to have you here. So, Dr. Angela, can you tell us how you got to this place in your life where you're doing this amazing work with parents and kids?
Sure. So I provide life and business development coaching to basically empower, equip, and educate people or individuals and also business owners to create the life, family, and business that they want. So I focus on what my vision is to do better, be better, have better. And I came to this time in my life. First of all, this is my third act. So this is my second business. So I'm really excited, but this is very personal to me because it is based on raising my kids, being a former homeschooling mom, and navigating my children through the public school system. So having done that, I had to develop systems, especially I have a middle child with dyslexia that we found out he had dyslexia when he entered the public school.
Right.
So I had to develop systems to navigate homeschooling because at the beginning, I had no clue what I was doing. I was basically forced into homeschooling. I didn't know anything about homeschooling. And my child turned here in Georgia, the deadline for kindergarten is September the 1st. And my son turned 5 September the 15th. So I was thrust into homeschooling because I wanted to make sure he was ready for kindergarten. Right. So I wanted to make sure that he got what he needed and he wasn't left behind. So that is basically my focus is to assist parents and being able to be a better advocate and also to position their children for academic success. So they are thriving academically and also emotionally. So it's just using my systems and helping other parents to find their way to do that. Because I spent so much money and so much time. So I basically did the research for parents because I know they're busy.
Right.
So I just wanted to make sure that parents can properly position their children. So, so they won't have to go through what I went through.
Yes.
And
important. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was also a professor. So I cheated a little bit. I had access to thousands of students. So with raising children, I asked them, what makes you successful? And I also had to deal with the at-risk students. So
Right.
I got a lot of information I was able to put into my courses for parents. So that's what got me started, just having all this information and wanted to share and mentor other parents so they can get their children where they want their children to be.
Right. Yes. That is wonderful. No, because don't we all need that? Oh my gosh. Especially this last year and a half is like, now parents are like, are put in the position of being teachers all of a sudden and they have no idea how this works. And so this is so timely. Thank you for what you do. So let's dive into this. You mentioned your son has dyslexia. Can you tell our listeners exactly what dyslexia is?
We ran into when I put him in public school was the notion that dyslexia was part of intellect.
Right.
So it was kind of like he scored 4 grades ahead in analytical skills,
right,
but he had difficulties reading.
Right.
And so when I pushed for the IEP in the public school system, it was kind of like, but he's so smart. And that's one of the myths. I think that's one of the biggest myths
Mm-hmm.
is the fact that it has something to do with intellect, but it doesn't. It's word processing. It impacts executive skills. So um
Which are housed right here in the brain.
right, it's right here. So
Right.
what I found out, and this is why I developed my leaning into dyslexia course, is that when I utilized my system, the reason why he came into public school with such a high score in analytical reasoning, I didn't know then that I had to develop, when I developed a curriculum for them, that it allowed him to focus on his critical thinking skills and the ability to analyze at a high level.
Right.
And we never know what we're doing right until they get
Right.
older. So I didn't understand at that time.
Right.
And just to back up, because your listeners might say, she developed a curriculum, like why? I want people to understand that my oldest is 21. So back then, when he was 5, they
Mm-hmm.
didn't have all of the programs that they have now. So
Right.
luckily, when people are homeschooling now, they have access to programs
Right.
that will allow them to not have to develop a curriculum. But for me,
Right.
the curriculum, because I wanted to be geared towards Black boys. But
Mm-hmm.
what I didn't know is that having that multi-sensory curriculum
Right.
helps dyslexic children.
Right.
And so that was the biggest myth that I want to touch on. The second biggest myth is that of the IEP. And that's why I also offer the IEP workshop. A lot of people look at special education, especially when you're dealing with Black boys. You hear a lot of research saying that Black boys are overrepresented in special education.
Right.
That's disproportionately when we talk about percentage wise. But I have found, being an educational advocate, that not enough children are using the IEP. That's one. Two, you have to know how to use the IEP
Right.
that fits your child.
Right.
So, what the research doesn't show is that although Black boys are in special education, I find that the parents don't use the programs that come with going into special education, which is another reason why I have that workshop.
Right.
So it's interactive. It allows parents to ask the questions that basically sometimes parents are intimidated and to ask, and they feel unprepared,
Right.
right? In
When they're
the
at school.
in the meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I found, that is one of the strategies that I use for my son. And so that goes into the reason why I'm really pushing that intellect part of dyslexia, and
Right.
a lot of people not understanding what it is it has such a drastic outcome,
Oh, yes.
because I
Absolutely.
saw a lot of students not being able to finish college, and it was disheartening because I knew it was dyslexia. And with the word processing, and that oftentimes being the biggest factor, it hinders them from being able to comprehend
Right.
their reading, because by the time they finish reading the story or the assignment, you also have issues with memory.
Correct.
And so that plays a part of it. And some of the other things, when you're talking about executive functioning, you find that one of the things we had to work on, and I noticed once I found out that my son had dyslexia, you can see it. Sometimes they're kind of clumsy. Parents will say,
Right.
no, he's clumsy. but that has something to do with coordination,
Right.
right? So it plays out in reading,
Right.
that whole, the connection to what they're reading and what they're understanding. And
Right.
I've talked to parents that say, well, maybe my child needs glasses, or maybe it's a vision issue, without tackling that it's a sensory. And
Yes.
it's also what we talked about, the part of the brain
Right.
that is not working. I hate to say not working properly. I hate to say that.
But it's not that it's not working properly. It just
Yeah,
works differently. Yeah.
yeah, it works
Works
differently.
differently.
That's
Yeah.
what I want to say. And I think that's what people think. Like, you can't get on a certain level. I've had parents to be concerned about that. Like, how is my child is supposed to get to college when it doesn't work? But that's not what it is. You just need a system
To
as
bypass.
far as reading, and also a system that connects the home and the school.
Right.
To
Wow. Yeah.
yeah, because you can't have an IEP and then they come home and it's totally different.
Correct. I
That
think
doesn't.
that's such an important point. Yes, that there has to be a connection between what's going on at school and at home. So parents listening, it's so critical to follow what's going on with your kid. Yeah,
Right.
because you
And
have
it,
to
and it
do.
can be overwhelming. It can
Yes,
be overwhelming for parents, especially
right,
when you don't have access to the correct information.
right,
And you don't know what to focus on. And what helped me was I took my son out of public school and he went to an online public school. And I don't have any affiliation with them, but I'm gonna do a shout out. So he went to K-12 online public school.
right.
And one of the things the I was able to do was to learn in their parent university. So basically they have parents to learn about dyslexia, because the part where how you can help them to read, what kind of program helps them to read, and
Right.
them not being able to separate words into syllables, and not hearing vowels, and those type of things are essential. So I was able to put that in my program so parents can make the connection, because a lot of parents don't have access to that. They're working, they're busy,
True.
and they don't have access to that. So I make it easy for parents, because I did the let's see what works, and here and there, just the different programs. And I just was able to put all of that, what I learned, all the research and all the experiences that I had with my son, and the journey that I took into my programs.
So what would you say to a parent who says, hey, I'm not sure if this is what's going on with my child? What are some things that you think are important for to raise parents' awareness, to say, hey, maybe there's something going on here and I need to get it checked?
From experience, I had the opportunity to homeschool my child. So at the time, he was the middle child. So by the time I put him in public school, he was in second grade,
Right.
because my oldest was in fourth grade. So I knew something was going on, but I didn't know what dyslexia was.
Okay.
And once I start researching, and I'm going, okay, the B's and the D's are backwards, and no matter how much I work with him, the P's and the Q's, and I'm reading Dr. Seuss. It's something like this, as easy as this. I'm reading Dr. Seuss, and I'm going, what's the rhyming words? What words do you hear rhyme? And he's like, I don't hear the rhyming. I don't understand what's rhyming. And so that speaks to the vowels. So
Right.
when parents see their children, because when you have dyslexia, you're not able to separate in syllables, and you're not able to sound out those words individually,
Yeah.
because the the experience and exposure that children usually have when they are learning to read is not the style for dyslexic children. It has to be systematic. It has to focus on breaking down the sounds of each letter,
Right.
and then being able to put it together.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that the parents can see, as far as not understanding rhyming words, and
Mhm.
also sight words.
So,
That doesn't work with dyslexic children.
okay.
um he was in a slow learning program, and so they were bat cat hat,
Hmm.
and that doesn't work with them. It has to be systematic. It has to be the understanding of the long A. This is an example, long A, um, you know, things like that. And you have to go through the system of the sound of the letters. Because what the most important thing I want to tell parents, because sometimes there's guilt. I know it happened with me.
Right.
So your child is struggling,
Right.
and you didn't understand that child has dyslexia, and they're struggling, and it's emotional journey too, because they become emotionally drained. They don't want to raise their hand in class because they're embarrassed. They can't
Right.
read the subject.
Right.
And so I would tell parents to be easy on themselves, but also to look at these signs, to look at how long it takes them to read um, the context, and also breaking up syllables,
Mhm.
and not seeing vowels, and not being able to rhyme the words. but
Right.
but also, one of the things that I was told when I was doing handwriting with my son, and the fact that he was transposing letters,
Mhm.
that, oh, boys are slower, they learn, and so specifically parents with boys, I want them not to fall for that.
No, not true.
Not true, not true. And the second thing that parents can do is that it's within their right to ask for testing.
Hmm. Yes, I've
And
seen that in my office so much. Like parents come to me to do the testing. I'm like, no, the school needs to do the testing. Yes.
yeah, because
Yeah.
our taxpayers, pay for that. And sometimes parents wait until a teacher says there's an issue. I think they need to be tested. And parents can get them tested. It's like, if you see your child is struggling, they need twice as much time in doing their work. And when they're younger, they have issues with tying their shoes. Maybe it takes a little longer with tying their shoes. And when parents start seeing this at a young age, just pay attention,
Yeah.
because then when you start using rhyming words, I would say right now, do a test, get a Dr. Seuss book, or any type of book that has rhyming words,
Right.
and see if your child has issues with that. I start seeing that around two, not hearing that when we said, when we were saying the words, two
Right.
or three. Those are some of the things they can look for, and just ask to be tested, because the earlier that parents, and I cannot stress enough, the earlier parents seek help,
Yes.
the better the outcome.
Yes, absolutely true. Because there's a critical period between ages 0 and 5 for brain development and any changes you want to implement. So yes, you're absolutely right. Let's stress that.
Yes,
Don't be in
do that,
denial. Yes, I
do
know.
that.
I like what you said about parents feeling guilty because we feel like we've invested so much in our kids and no, how can there be a problem? But it's actually better if we just say, okay, let's just find out what it is that's going on versus pretend or be in denial that there's nothing. It doesn't mean you're a bad parent. Okay, dyslexia is brain-based. It does not mean you are a
Right,
bad parent.
right, right.
Not
And it,
caused by bad parenting. Yes,
yes, and they
anything you
learn
did or
differently.
did not do. Yes.
Right. And all they need to focus on is they learn differently. But I find that a lot of parents are scared. That's one.
Yes.
Two, they're overwhelmed and they think that that's a whole lot of work
Mhm.
dealing with that. And the school system, I'll just let the school system deal with that and I'll let them lead, which
No.
is a mistake. And third, believe it or not, I know some parents listening to me, and it's hard to admit that dreams can be changed through finding out your child has dyslexia. And that's a common feeling. People may say to themselves, well, you know, I want to put my child on a track to go to this school or that school. But a child with dyslexia, it it doesn't end. Dyslexia is there. So it's not something like, oh, let me do this and then it's gone away. It's part
Of who
of
they
that
are.
child. And
Yeah.
it's okay. It's part of the child. It's not finding out your child has cancer. But that's an interesting take on what propels parents to possibly not seek the help. It's fear.
Mhm.
You
So,
know,
yes, but that's why Dr. Angela is here.
parents come to me,
That's right.
come to my
Please go to
therapist.
her. She knows
Yeah.
what she's talking about. Yeah,
So
no, you're absolutely. Oh, this is so critical because you know how many kids' futures can just be rerouted just with the right information and their whole self-esteem and everything they think of themselves be turned in the right direction just because of what they find out that it is possible to be successful even with this. It's not a death sentence. It doesn't mean,
right.
yeah. So please tell us, how is your son doing?
Okay, let me do a little bragging now.
Yes, there
Do a
you
little
go.
bragging. This was interesting because he was featured in a podcast. So to hear my son regurgitate my system, I'm going, that's great because
Right.
I didn't know he was going to be on the podcast. You know how children can be sometimes. It's like, oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah, mom, I'm doing this podcast, and I'm going, you're on a podcast. He actually was on a podcast, and he talked about the academic success that he achieved. So where he is now, he is a junior in college, and he got into the honors program with scholarship. Thank you. And he's going off to earn his doctorate in chiropractic to follow his father. And it's just a strategy. The strategy, once parents learn my system, it doesn't end. It's basically, I tell parents, one payment for a lifetime benefit, because it doesn't go away. The skills and the systems that parents learn when they're in public school is what the child will carry on to college.
Right.
Getting the right accommodations, understanding the accommodations, because those accommodations follow can follow the child
Right.
again if parents know how to navigate, if parents understand the accommodations, because the college, the college, they have accommodations
Mhm.
for children that have had an IEP or that have needs or learning differences.
Right.
And so that's why it's so important for parents to act quickly, to not be fearful. But I tell you another thing that stops parents sometimes to get from signing up for registering for classes like mine. It's being judged. And so what I have is a judge-free zone, so parents are not by themselves. So I have a Facebook group, and parents can join the tribe of other parents that are going through that. So my Leaning Into Dyslexia program also comes with lifetime access to a Facebook group, because parents learn off each other.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. So it's nothing like having a tribe. It's,
Yes.
instead of looking, I don't want them to go through what I went through. I'm like, okay, what's the parent? I'm, seeking out parents and trying to figure out what they did.
Right.
And I take the work out of that. So parents, you don't have to run a parent down anymore in the hallway at school. You can just come into the Facebook group and ask other parents. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
What they did.
Yeah.
So I think that's very beneficial. And also to piggyback on that really quick, is that when you're dealing with Black boys and IEPs and disability, it's a little different. So you have challenges sometimes that the school has, as far as nurturing Black boys. So that's why I have the Black Boy Success for Our Sons program. So parents of Black boys can actually get that program with the IEP. So I tackle both of those
mixed together.
mixed together, so that they can navigate successfully.
Yes.
For their son as well. Because as a mother of 3 Black boys, it is a little different, and we have to navigate sometimes as Black parents a little differently, especially what's going on in our culture and meaning society culture of what Black boys take in.
Right. No, you're absolutely right. Wow. Thank you for being such a resource for the parents. No, this is so wonderful. Parents listening, please share this with your friends who you think may be struggling and may need the help, because we all need each other, and that's why we're here talking about this, because it's so important. And we're definitely going to have you back, Dr. Angela. So can you tell us quickly where the listeners can find you? Where can they go find you?
The listeners can go on my website, drangelalifecoach.com.